Hey there, Mike Dunn with Gaming Trend, and we're here with another episode of Tabletop Throwdown. And we've got a special one tonight. What do you say, Dan? Dan, my co-host, he's here again this week. We haven't seen Dan in a few weeks, but I'm glad to have him here. I think his other life is going to help us with this discussion tonight because Dan is a teacher and assistant principal at a middle school. And I hope he's all right with me saying that.
You're good. You're good.
All right. And we've also got George Bergstrom from Games and Gaming Roundtable. They've been promoting gaming and libraries since 2011. And we've got Josh Isringhausen with Tabletop Alliance with us tonight. Tabletop Alliance is all about getting games in classrooms and helping teachers with games and education through gaming. But I also need to, for full disclosure purposes, also say that Josh is also a member of the Gaming Trend team. He does a few board game reviews for us every now and then. And I'm really happy to have you guys here. Josh, George, welcome to Tabletop Throwdown.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for giving the opportunity.
Excellent. So I kind of went into this thinking, with George is trying to get games in libraries, Josh is trying to get games in classrooms, and Dan is trying to wrangle all of that as an assistant principal at his school.
True.
And I know he's done a lot of bringing games to school as well. So I thought this would be a perfect group to have a chat about this. But let's before we get too deep into anything, let's find out a little more in depth about what your organizations do. So George, tell us about the Games and Gaming Roundtable and what you guys are doing.
Sure. So the Games Gaming Roundtable, or we usually just say GameRT, is a subgroup of the American Library Association. So ALA is our large national organization. There are lots of smaller units within that. Roundtables are usually the smallest of those units. And we try to raise awareness of and help educate library staff all across the country in how to use games or any type of gaming in their environments.
Awesome. Josh, tell us about Tabletop Alliance. I know I've seen you guys at a few conventions over the years.
Yeah, so Tabletop Alliance, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. So our function is that we have a deal with a lot of game distributors that allow us to purchase games wholesale, and we turn around and donate every game that we purchase to primarily schools. I believe, Dan, you've received one of our boxes in the past.
Yes, we have.
And we've donated to some libraries and some other community organizations as well. Really focused on spreading the gaming as a whole through education and through after-school programming, getting kids and young people into the hobby as a way of keeping them out of other activities or engaging their brains in a different and unique and fun way.
Yeah, and Dan, actually, you've like Josh said, your school's actually been a beneficiary of Tabletop Alliance. I guess let's start with games for kids. Like, I have some ideas, and obviously I also have 3 kids of my own. But I have ideas and kids, and I like to bring those things together. But I mean, personally, I think games can help with a lot of different things that kids are struggling with today, especially in the digital age. Dan, I know you could probably speak a little more directly to that. Why don't you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, at least I mean, I work in a middle school. I've also worked in high school, but there's a couple different facets where I see, you know, especially tabletop gaming, just helping out the lives of kids. First of all, they're just connected too much sometimes. You know, they're on their computers, one-on-one devices all the time. They're doing all their homework. They're doing, you know, they're playing games. They're just on devices all the time. And so it's just a way to get off of something and to connect with another person across the table. The other thing that I see a lot of is just finding a safe space for kids who are not athletes. They're not necessarily people who are going to get up on stage, or they're going to, you know, do some of these other traditional, say, school activities, but it's a way that they can find a way to actually work with somebody else and actually, you know, get into the get into conversations with other people. Not to mention the problem solving that you get from just trying to puzzle out a game or a strategy and different things of that nature.
Nice. Yeah, and I've also I'd also like to see more schools get into having making TTRPGs available to kids, especially because I think TTRPGs really help kind of take you out of your own personal perspective, and that's a really good way to learn empathy, right?
Yeah. So in one of my previous jobs, I worked in an academic library, and helping connect curriculum to careers is a big thing in most colleges. And the Society for Human Resource Managers surveys HR execs pretty much every year. And they always come back to colleges saying, you know, academically, your new hires are great, but it's the soft skills that we always find lacking. And just about any game, you know, video game, tabletop game, role-playing game, is going to help strengthen those soft skills. So that's one thing we always talk about.
Yeah, we see it quite a bit. We've actually a good probably 40+%, if not more, of the games that we donate end up being tabletop gaming. We get a lot of requests from schools, particularly middle schools, looking for source material. We do a lot of D&D books, but we've also donated other things that are maybe a little bit more what some might consider age appropriate. So we donate things that, you know, Avatar, The Last Airbender, role-playing games, some of those types of things, because people really want to utilize, to Dan's point, right, those kids who may not be getting socialization in traditional things like athletics, being able to come together around the table, work towards a common goal, problem solve, use creative thinking. All of those types of soft skills that George mentioned, I think are really harnessed at the table in a lot of respects. We see that there's actually been quite a bit of research and study. We've partnered in the past with an organization. I'm going to blank on their name now that we're talking about them, but up in Seattle, a couple of professors who are studying and researching the use of role-playing games in the development of social skills for children with autism. And they've seen a ton of success in getting students who are lacking in some of those social skills to come out of their bubble and engage in those types of ways. So it's really cool to just kind of know that impact is out there, and that, you know, we're able to play our little part in building up the next generation in that way.
Yeah. And even to
Excellent.
go off of
yeah,
your point,
that's not easy to search for, is it?
No.
I was trying to find the organization that you were talking about, and I went through it. It went down a rabbit hole. Dan, what were you saying?
Well, I was saying, even to Josh's point, we've never been more connected as a society in terms of technology, information, but we're actually facing a loneliness epidemic, that's going out there, and even the Surgeon General is talking about, how much that people are disconnected because they can go within a screen, or they can just kind of disappear within. So anything that we can do to help, especially at a young age, get kids connected is one of the biggest goals that we're seeing right now, especially coming out of pandemic and lots of different things, but trying to get a place where schools are where everyone can belong, whether that's a tabletop role-playing game, or if it's sitting across a chessboard, or having a couple decks of Magic at lunch, or a chess or checkers game. It's as simple as just trying to get them to socialize with another person and to figure out some problem solving strategies and some social skills. So
I think I found it. Is it Game to Grow?
That sounds correct.
Foundry 10 and Game to Grow.
I believe that is the group.
Okay, awesome. My Google Foo is still good. They haven't completely destroyed the algorithm to thwart me yet. So, awesome. Well, yeah, no, I find it really encouraging that we're now like taking this seriously, right? Because when I was growing up in the 80s, we had the Satanic Panic in regards to like D&D. We had a lot of just there was a lot of stigma to gaming, and like most teachers kind of frowned on it, or just confiscated my D&D books and that sort of thing. So I'm really happy to see that it's becoming taken seriously and seen as potentially helpful. Now, George, I don't want to focus too much on the kids. I'm not sure. It feels like your remit is a little broader than just children. But I mean, thinking libraries, obviously,
Oh, yeah.
they're going to be there. Like, you want the libraries there definitely for the kids. But I imagine there's some you're getting some adults involved in gaming on your side as well.
Yeah, so our organization has library staff from pretty much every type of library: college, public, school, special. And so members in our group can work with almost any age group. Obviously, we have maybe the majority of our members are public librarians who work with young adults and even younger children, but we got plenty of academic librarians who work with college age and even older, and we've got special librarians like myself who I actually work with library employees to help them understand the importance of games, and then they have to take it to their administrators or their local authorities to get permission to bring games into libraries. So yeah, as I think I told you, we probably have an expert who works with every type of game in every type of library. So,
well, and I would say, George, you would say that like community is a big part of that. It's. I mean, I see libraries as kind of a community hub. Schools or different organizations, and
absolutely,
bringing people together over a table or a game is second that.
Yes. In fact, for one of the webinars I did recently, we interviewed Elon Lee of Exploding Kittens, and he talks about the people around the table are the game, not the product in front of them. It's bringing people to the table. Yeah, I mean, that's how his design philosophy is the fun is in the people around the table. It's not necessarily what they put on the table for them. So, and I know a lot of libraries have success with that intergenerational programming, bringing people who may never meet each other together in all sorts of ways. So.
Well, I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Like, I feel like these days community is such is almost a much bigger thing around gaming than it has been for as long as I've been gaming, right? local game stores will live or die by their community these days, like by the people that actually come in and play there. Whereas it was just about, like, years ago, it was just about pushing product or like making sure you had the hot new releases out there. But these days it is very much about community, very much about that social interaction between people and I think it's because a lot of us have missed that. Right. And I feel like one of the reasons why gaming has gotten so big in recent years is because we have a generation of kids who have grown up with the lexicon, the language of gaming in digital games and video games. So the barriers to tabletop games and TTRPGs is a lot less than it used to be. Like, what hit points are, what leveling up is, that sort of thing. And as they get older, they're craving that social interaction that they've were okay with not having, or they're just getting through their devices, right? They want something more. And that's why I think we're seeing a lot of the younger generations coming up getting into tabletop gaming. Frankly, I love it. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it's great to see a full library with all ages around a table playing something.
Nice. So I guess that actually brings me to another point. Like, I was seeing tabletop local gaming stores as like a place to congregate, but you're trying to make libraries a place to congregate and play games. And that's super cool, especially in areas where there aren't local game stores that enable that, or it's maybe not as accessible or not as new gamer friendly, right?
Yeah. Libraries have always tried to be that third space, the place in the community where everyone can go. But in terms of gaming, it's definitely something we want to increase, to raise awareness of, increase. And, having that opportunity to go to my first Gamma last week, learning and working with those retailers is something that a lot of libraries do on a one-on-one basis. And hopefully our organization can start working with Gamma to maybe help bring together in a larger scale retailers and libraries.
Oh,
because obviously we usually have space and we hopefully have games, although not always, but having the number of people to teach games is kind of hard. So if we can make those partnerships, that might help the stores out, and it would help libraries.
So how was that? I imagine you met a few people at Gamma last week, and you were able to talk about this and get some people on board. How did that go? How was Gamma for you from your perspective? I'm really curious.
I mean, like I said, it was my first time. It was definitely different than any conference or convention I've done before. And I got to be honest, as someone who consumes a lot of gaming media, it was pretty hard not to geek out seeing a lot of people I recognize in the gaming industry. But I think I did pretty well at that. But yeah, made a lot of connections. I've met one of the biggest things that we were trying to do as an organization was, because it was so close to where I live, it was really easy for me to go and thank all the publishers who have worked with us in the past. That was number one. And then learn from them how working with us has benefited them, or how we can benefit them a little more. That was kind of a secondary objective. And then obviously trying to make connections with publishers that have not worked with us in the past, and try to, get more commitments to help us out as an organization. So nice. It was very successful.
Now, Josh, you went to Gamma last year. You've had a year since then. Like, would you say that was a good trip, a good thing that you had? Like, did anything come of it, I guess is what I'm getting at. Like, did any good stuff for Tabletop Alliance and the cause that you're fighting for?
I think for us, because we are set up a little bit different, we're pretty new in the game, right? We started as a organization in 2020. A lot of it was just kind of those initial one-off connections,
Mhm.
and building some of that portfolio of connection points. The biggest thing for us coming out of Gamma was just being able to take advantage of um, having everybody there in one location, and being able to place orders like there at, we treated it like retailers treat Gamma, right?
Right. Got it.
Rather than, maybe what we would like to see eventually. We weren't necessarily building at a point where we were able to really enlist a lot of donations or support in other ways that we may hopefully try to, obviously want to try and get to at some point with some of these publishers. But yeah, I think it was an incredibly fruitful experience for us. It was a great learning opportunity, something that we really were looking forward to this year, and just unfortunately with schedules didn't work out for us. But
Mhm.
certainly something I think we'll be looking to go back to again, and just continue to try and build those connection points, and working with folks in the industry to. I think a lot of people see value in what we do. There's just not necessarily a big library of, how does that translate, right? How does
Mhm.
how does getting games into an elementary school or a middle school today affect my bottom dollar tomorrow
Mhm.
or 5 years
Right.
from now, right? And I think it's kind of helping get that message across, and helping folks kind of recognize where the impact maybe is not going to be felt tomorrow, but
Mhm.
in 7 or 8 years, when those middle schoolers are college kids and going off and buying games and those types of things, kind of the impact of getting them invested in this at an early age. And also just the social aspect of it, right? Just growing the hobby, making
Mhm.
this an industry that continues to thrive. I think it's been fascinating to watch through the pandemic and after, just this bubble continue to grow, and it doesn't seem like it's slowing down or going to slow down. I think
Mhm.
to points everybody made before, right? I think people are really looking for those connection points, and I think a lot of folks during lockdown, during the pandemic, reconnected with family around the table playing card games and tabletop games for the first time, and I think that's continuing to have impact. And it's why we're seeing such an amazing, continued growth in this industry.
Nice. Nice. Um, yeah, no, that actually it actually has me wondering, like, if you guys were like businesses, you would have metrics like sales numbers and units sold and this all this to like kind of close the loop and kind of give you validation, or maybe we need to do something else kind of thing. Like, I imagine it's a little harder for what to close that loop for both of you. uh George, what I guess, what kind of metrics for success do you feel you look for when you're working with libraries and you're continuing to try to get more games in libraries and establish those community touch points?
Sure. Well, one of the first things we need to do as an organization is actually find out how many libraries have games in them.
Mm.
It's not something that any of the national surveys or national data collection tools track. Um, IMLS is the large federal organization that most of the data gets tracked by, and they don't have a question on their like 300 question survey that libraries have to answer every year. It's It's awful, but they have to do it. And there's nothing on there for games. And in fact, my day job is in a state library. And so we have to administer that survey. And we can add a few questions. And I've been able to get a question added a few years ago. But because the survey is so cumbersome and because the state has so many other things they want to learn, we basically don't repeat questions, at least not year over year. So I've only got 1 year's data, and it was actually buried in a question about what's often called a library of things. So it was really a question that had many, many, many choices. And so if a library employee that was doing that survey read that and said, we don't have a library of things, they probably skipped it, even if they have games in their collection. Or if they have a library of things, but they were going through this massive list. So as a national organization, the Roundtable, we have to try to figure out a way to get better data. There are over 17,500 public libraries in the United States. And if you add college and school and all the other types, the number is probably around 150,000 libraries in the country. So figuring out how many of them actually have games is one of our biggest challenges.
Interesting.
Because the publishers always, that's the question a publisher is always going to ask when we're asking for donations is like, well, how many libraries are there, or how many people might my game be in front of?
Yeah, that's stuff that a publisher would want to know. That's right.
Yep.
Holy crap.
Yep.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, the number of buildings is impressive enough. The number of, obviously it's the entire population of the country is going to be served by at least one library, but to know how many of them already have games, that will help us figure out how much more work we have to do as an organization.
Yeah. And then dealing with government bureaucracy is also, it doesn't make things any easier, right?
Yes. I mean, the most effective long-term solution would be to get it on that big national data tool. But that takes multiple years, and each state library has one person who sort of advocates for adding stuff to it. And so,
man.
That's why we're trying to do it as ourselves as an organization. But then, of course, there's response rates and, modeling and what's the right sample size to predict if our data is even useful or not. So
right. Because I used to have to do a lot of surveys as a UX designer. Gathering data on any project that I was currently working on. I actually did this recently, but not for something else, for another site that I'm working on. But it's you gotta have someone that knows how to tease that answer out to write that question, and that is not always the easiest thing to do.
Exactly. So that's the biggest picture, but obviously a smaller one for us is we've had an event for the last 16 or 17 years now, I think, that obviously is still way below pre-pandemic highs. So getting that event back up to where it was pre-pandemic is kind of a smaller term and hopefully an easier goal to achieve.
I wonder... All right, I'm totally spitballing here, so bear with me. But like, just a little synapse connected in my brain just now, and I was thinking about all of these conventions that have massive game libraries that you can check out a game from, right? Like, I feel like there might be some opportunity there, even just to like co-sponsor or help gain awareness for what you're trying to do with libraries by simply associating with game libraries and like getting people to know more about what you're doing. I don't know, is that something that you guys have thought of before?
There's certainly talk about that sort of thing. I mean, the biggest thing that any individual could do is go ask their public library or school library or whatever if they have games, and if not, put in a formal request, because I can guarantee there's at least one gamer at almost every library in the country, and they either have never asked if they could do it because they feel their administration won't allow it, or they've asked and they've been shot down, and they need the general public to put those requests in. And the more times that happens, the more likely they are to start being allowed to collect games.
Nice. Josh, you're next.
Yeah.
Like, I imagine it's a little easier for you to have some kind of metric because, like you said, you're similar to a retail in that you're placing orders. But I feel like that's how do you close the loop with publishers afterwards, right? Like, because they're probably going to wonder, well, I'm donating all these games. What is that? How is that helping us? Like,
Yeah.
is there something that you offer them in return? I guess.
Yeah, we've tried a few different things where, I think that's something we're still figuring out what the most efficient way of doing some of this is. At the end of the day, part of it is we're working with feedback from our partners that we're giving games to, right? We consider every teacher, every librarian, every community organizer that we donate to be a partner in our organization. And so, a lot of what we need to improve upon and continue to improve upon is how do we get that feedback from them. It's easy for me to go up to a publisher and I can say, hey, in the last 3 years, 4 years, we've donated games that have at some point sat in front of 52,000 kids, right? That's the number of students enrolled in schools or in programs that we've donated to. I have that number.
Right.
What I can't say is
how many kids have actually played those games,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. How many
Yeah.
kids have played those games? How many kids have really engaged in that type of way? And I think, that's really what some of these publishers are looking for, are those more detailed numbers. So it's harder to get some of that feedback back because we are relying on those partners. And let's face it, most of them are teachers. Most of them are heavily overworked and don't necessarily want to come home at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon and answer a survey from Tabletop Alliance, which we get, right? We do hope that we get some feedback, right? I think one of the greatest feelings in the world is when we have schools or libraries come back to us and say, this was a huge success. We need more games.
Nice.
The challenge here right now is we don't have the games to give right now. We're working. It's a constant, we get an influx of donations and we ship our games out and then it grows. Like, it's a great thing. George, you were chatting. I know recently we had a whole bunch of libraries in North Carolina put in requests for us because one person got games from us. They went to a convention there in North Carolina, talked to a bunch of friends, said, hey, this is a great organization. We come back that next weekend and have 10 or 11 different librarians in North Carolina being like, hey, we'd love to get some games in from you all if you have them available. So we're on a backlog right now, trying to find the funding to get some of these orders filled. And so that's where we're at right now, is how do we take those numbers and get more detailed information so that we can take those back to the publishers and say, hey, in the last year, 5,000 kids played this game, and because of our donations, right? That's the number that we really need to get a better handle on right now.
It actually strikes me that what the two of you are doing seems very complementary. Like, George, I can't imagine that that GameRT does a lot of the actual like procurement of games and distribution of them to libraries. You're more teaching awareness and and trying to get everybody to like talk and think about games in libraries. Whereas Josh, Tabletop Alliance is all about like, actually putting games on tables in schools and libraries. I don't know. Maybe bringing you guys together is a match made in heaven. I don't know. Maybe you guys should talk a little more after the podcast.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, we'd always be willing. I mean, that one big event I was talking about, we that's the only time we try to get stuff from publishers, and they have usually been very generous. Although, again, that was part of what I was doing at Gamma last week, was hearing from some of them how the reasons why they need to cut back. And obviously the shipping crisis is the biggest one that we don't have the ability to distribute, as you mentioned. So any donations that we get, it's I will run the lottery basically of our registrants. I will give you an Excel spreadsheet, and you send on to them whatever you are choosing to send on to them. And so a few of the publishers are like, yeah, we still love libraries. We want to do this, but we just can't do the shipping anymore. So figuring out ways to help the publishers with that is another big challenge.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely crossed my mind that I think, George, definitely some conversations follow up on this would be a welcome opportunity, right? I think it's a great way of us to kind of building some of that, some of the other work that we've done in the past that we are hoping to expand more into in the future is hosting webinars and different teaching opportunities for people within our network to be sharing with one another. What am I doing that is successful, right? What are the events that I'm hosting at my local library that are really having a good impact, and how do I set those up, right? So would love to be able to kind of pick your brain and get connected in with your network of how can we partner in a lot of these ways. I think there's definitely some opportunities there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I dropped in the chat earlier a link to one of our webinars, and feel free to share that in the notes or whatever for the podcast. But
we'll put that in the
that one was
in the description
at one of the COVID years of annual, so everything was virtual that year, and it is a high school teacher, a therapist, and then Fenway Jones from Jasper's Game Day, talking about the benefits of role-playing games. So yeah, we've been doing that kind of webinar, for years now.
Yeah, that's great.
Hopefully have things we can share. So
yeah, no, that's great.
Awesome.
I really appreciate it. I have it pulled up in another tab, and we'll be watching it once we jump off of here. So
perfect. Yeah.
Excellent. So I'm really curious from all three of you, like kind of get into the nitty gritty now. Like what specific games tend to resonate? What are schools asking for, or what games tend to like really kind of rise to the top in terms of popularity of what you're doing, popularity with the kids, what really kind of gets things going in the libraries. What talk to some of that.
Well, I can speak to a little bit of, like I said, I work in a middle school. And so one of the things that I've noticed is really just timing is sometimes an issue. So we're looking for games that kids can pick up onto quickly, and that they can get into and learn some mechanics. I think one of my games that I got from Tabletop Alliance was Carcassonne, and kids really latched onto that one really well, as well as Tiny Towns was another one that they latched onto from those. But even going back to some of the basics of just learning how to play chess and learning some of those, we have a lot of kids playing chess at our school. But it's really what can we get in a short amount of time. Teaching a group of kids and trying to get as many kids to the table as possible is one of the big things for us. And I know one of my classes, they're actually designing games based off the mechanics that they learned during just the introduction to games that our teacher brought into the class, and seeing a lot of that. And I've got kids playing Magic the Gathering at lunch. There's lots of things where, again, I think that quick play time for us is a big part of it, and easy to learn. Middle school students are squirrely, and their attention spans. We gotta get in, teach them, and get them going quickly. But I think that's a really great way to introduce them to new mechanics and new games. And I think that's where I'm seeing most of it from the middle school side of things.
So yeah, a cop-out answer for libraries would be any type of game, because obviously there's so many audiences. But echoing what Dan said, if it's for programming, it's definitely got to be something that either A, plays a lot of people, or B, can be in a short time period, and C, can be easy to teach. One of the biggest things I'm starting to realize, as someone who is probably a pretty heavy gamer myself, although I don't play nearly as much as I'd like, but I have researched enough and understand the mechanics that most games don't challenge me too much. But then trying to show them or teach them to people who are not gamers can be incredibly challenging. So anything that is quick to learn is great if it's for library programming. But of course, the other side of libraries is the lending of things. So, depending on the size of your community or what they're interested in, you might want to have heavier stuff, especially because those are the things that usually have a higher price tag and are hard for people to buy individually.
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
So obviously, when our annual conference was in DC a couple of years ago, Kevin Bergstrom and Tori Lynn came to show off Votes for Women, because it was just before it was released.
Oh,
and
excellent.
Beautiful game, can work great in the classroom, so many educational opportunities, but that price tag is a kind of a lot for a family, especially if they don't know much about games. But if a library has it, hundreds of people can enjoy it, and then hopefully half of them will go buy it, because we want our publishers to succeed.
right. Close that loop. What about you, Josh?
Yeah, I will echo a lot of what Dan said, right? We have a very particularized context. So, you're not going to see us doling out a bunch of war games or things like that, right?
Right.
But we
no Lacerda, Lacerda in the schools. Yeah.
we're looking for, a huge chunk of what we do is role-playing games, because it's what's hot, it's what's in demand, it's what people want, and it's a really great way to build a lot of those soft skills. But we also, we look at things from a educational lens, as much as humanly possible. And I can make an argument for pretty much any game that you can name has an educational component to it. It may be a little hidden. I was having a conversation with a family member who's a kindergarten teacher, right? And they were kind of talking about, that, the games that kids want to play aren't necessarily, what they think of as educational. And I brought up King of Tokyo, and I think King of Tokyo is an amazing game for 8, 9, 10-year-olds to play, because you can have really interesting conversations with kids after playing King of Tokyo. What did it feel like to be in the middle with everyone else beating up on you? Did that feel fun? Did that feel good? Or was that hard to deal with? Right. To be able to kind of engage in that even emotional development piece, right? I really think there's value in a lot of it. But, we get a lot of, your classics, right? Catan is one that we ship out quite a bit. But it is what can be taught in 15 to 20 minutes, what can be played in an hour or less. Most
Yeah.
of our context, if it can't be played in 30 to 45 minutes, it's not going to get played because most of these programs are an hour long after school. And so
Right.
that's the time that they have to play them in. So, it is very much focused on what can. Pandemic is another one. Folks love it. It's a great one for some of those. For sale, we had one teacher that was teaching basic economics to
Yeah.
kids, and for sale they wanted 5 copies of it so they could use it in their classroom. So those are the types of things that we are typically sending out. Another one that got a really good feedback was Her Story. Folks
Yeah.
were,
Oh yeah.
along with a lot of the trekkings, those are
Mhm.
really great options for the context that we're working with.
Yeah, I feel like the trekkings, especially, like they kind of went into that with an educational mindset, right? Those
Mhm.
games.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Um,
Yeah.
well, yeah. Go ahead, George.
Oh, I was just I got to use For Sale with I think it was an entrepreneurship class
Oh,
once,
nice.
and hearing them break out the ROI in the middle of playing this game, shows that they're connecting to the subject matter of the class, even though they're playing a relatively simple game.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I feel something like are you familiar with QE? That game where you're basically kind of making up the economy as you go along. Like I feel like that might almost reveal too much, right? Of just how fake our monetary systems really are. Um, uh, well, awesome. Well, just to wrap things up, uh, Josh and George, let's. I want to ask you guys, like, what are the things that you guys need from people like me, people gamers out there who want to help what you guys are doing. George, let's start with you.
Yeah. So as I said earlier, probably the biggest thing that just an everyday gamer could do is talk to their local library, find out if they already have games. If not, ask how they might be able to help to start that sort of thing. And if they do have games, ask if they need help, running programs or teaching games or things like that. Because, like I say, that can be the hardest part for librarians. They know the importance. They might even have a passing interest in games, but they're probably not the experts
Right.
in every game. And so, just helping out at events or, you know, writing up a quick blurb that can be displayed somewhere about why this or that game is an excellent game could be very helpful.
Excellent. What about you, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways. Like I mentioned, we are in a point right now where we have a pretty lengthy back order on folks who are really wanting to get games into the classroom. But I think it's twofold, right? One, we're always accepting donations, whether those are monetary or in kind. We've had in the past, we've had folks donate used games to us, and we'll always take those uh, to the extent we are able to. Sometimes, we had somebody want to donate TI4. We weren't able to really, weren't really able to pass that one along, but we, talked about, is this something that we can raffle off at a fundraiser event or something like that. So we're always open to those types of donations as well. But also just, talking to folks. I know everybody knows a teacher in their life, right? Everybody knows a community leader, a community organizer, somebody who's working in after school programming, those types of things. Talking to them about, using games in the classroom or using games in those after school programs, and referring them over to us. We have a backlog on games that, folks who are asking for games, but that does not mean we are pausing on taking in more requests. The more
Right.
the bigger that backlog is, the easier it is for me to go to a publisher and say, look at all these people who want your game and want to be giving this game to their kids or to their students or whoever to play. And the easier it is for me to solicit donations in that way as well. So yeah, anything it is to spread awareness about the use of games in education, and anything that folks are interested in donating, we're always happy to receive those things as well.
Excellent. Yeah, Josh, I might actually have a few games to float your way.
I'm sure.
I don't know if they'll be useful, but we do get a lot of games, and we generally try to donate those to charity when we're done with them. So
yeah, we the whole nonprofit started with a conversation about what do we do with our games when we're done with them.
Right.
So.
Excellent. Well, you're putting them to good use, man. I think that's awesome. Well, guys, this has been great. This has been a great discussion. We're going to put all of the links for Tabletop Alliance and GameRT in the description, so that folks can go and find out about both of these organizations and maybe even help out. I think even just helping spread awareness is probably something that both of you guys would really appreciate. And yeah, Dan, I'm sure you've probably been feeding some of your games into your school already. So I know you like to play a lot of you like to review a lot of the historical games just for that reason, right? Mm-hmm. Which I think is great. But fantastic. Well, thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate it. And yeah, let's get more kids and more people gaming, man. I think this is a great thing.
Yes.
Thanks again.
Really.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for setting this up, Mike.
Awesome. All right, well, we'll be back next week with another episode of Tabletop Throwdown. In the meantime, have fun playing games, y'all.